From MNTech, the Micro Nano Technology Education Center, this is Talking Technicians, the podcast about technicians, who they are, what they do, and where they come from. I'm your host, Peter Kazarnoff. I teach technicians and engineers at Portland Community College. In each episode, you'll meet a working technician and hear their story. That means real interviews with real technicians about real jobs. At the end of each episode, you'll hear actions you can take if you want to be a technician too. In this episode, you'll meet Rick. Rick works at the MTTC at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Rick, welcome to Talking Technicians.
Hello, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being on the podcast today. So, Rick, what is the MTTC? What does that stand for?
It stands for the Manufacturing, Training, and Technology Center here at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it's a nice facility that we have away from the main campus. And it's mainly like a laboratory, so the students can do lab work in the semiconductor clean room environment.
And how long have you been in Albuquerque, New Mexico?
I've been in Albuquerque, I would say, I went through school here, elementary school, middle school. So I consider myself a native, even though I wasn't born here. At this point in anyone's life, we can most likely choose to live anywhere in the world we want to. And I've picked Albuquerque to live and make my home.
What's something people might not know about Albuquerque that you know since you've been there for so long?
Well, it's definitely the West, and it's definitely sparsely populated compared to the East Coast and compared to California. The whole times I've been on the East Coast and in California, it becomes quite evident that I'm around like 1 million people or something. And when you go somewhere on the weekends to Big Bear, you've went to where the other 1 million people have went to get away from it all. And in New Mexico, when you leave the city of Albuquerque and you're trying to get away from it all, it doesn't take long. You're going to get into sparse areas and no people, no population and stuff like that. So,
Rick, is there anyone else in your household right now?
No, not right now. Not right now.
So tell me about your job. What is your job title and what do you do day to day at work?
My job title currently is technician, and it's specifically microelectronics technician. I don't know if that directly describes my job, but currently I work at the University of New Mexico. I work for professors here. They're doctors, they're all doctors. Me being a staff member here, I'm required to refer to them as doctor and professor when I speak to them, especially in front of students and stuff like that. And it's the same type of professional courtesy when I was in the military, when we talked to the officers and said, yes, sir, and spoke to the officers in such a way. So I assist the professors in their day-to-day needs and whatever that might be. But one thing to let you know is I have a lot of things that I do here at UNM, but the professors have made it more than clear to me. I still only have 3 responsibilities, and that's safety, safety, safety. And nobody wants to send their kid to school or child to school and have them, get hurt with chemicals, get exposed to gases and whatnot. So we need to have them learn in a safe environment,
Has there been an opportunity to grow professionally at UNM, the University of New Mexico?
Yes, very much so. Of course, they are just like every other big company. They'll offer you, tuition reimbursement and whatnot. And of course, working here, you could, make time to just walk over a few classrooms and go to class and whatnot. But we're at a level here where we're pretty much catering to the master's degree, doctoral students, people in grad school. We have very few undergrads who come into our lab, and it's usually farther on in their education before they do these levels of laboratory experiments.
What ways do you communicate with professors and students? Is it a lot of face-to-face verbal communication, or do you use other electronic means?
All of the above, and then of course there comes the time when we have to actually execute what they're wanting to try. So we'll go into the lab with them. So besides the professors with students, and of course that's our main role here, is to educate our students here at UNM. We have research professors. I think they call it, we're a tier 1A research institution. And so, we have also postdoctorates, and also we have customers that come in and use our facility. Us being a nonprofit, we're not charging outrageous amounts or whatnot, but just kind of to help keep the operation going. But of course, our local semiconductor manufacturers are not going to open their facility to let these startups and stuff come in and use these machines that they can't afford as a new startup company. So, we open our doors, we let them come in, we cater to them. And then, of course, we have to ensure their proprietary development of their product or whatever they're developing and stuff. And it could overlap quite a bit with the people that we get in here.
What types of machines and equipment do you help manage?
Well, they're clean room equipment. They're semiconductor manufacturing equipment. So because of our budget and whatnot, a lot of our equipment has been donated to us many years ago from the semiconductor industry. So Albuquerque used to be very rich in the workforce here for semiconductors, and not so much now. But we were given equipment, and the equipment that was given to us, and we maintain and keep it running. Some of the old equipment is literally almost like bulletproof. It just stays running and stays running. And it's a lot easier to keep running than something very high tech usually, and very able to get off the shelf parts to make repairs and whatnot. But it's been quite a challenge because a very large number of our pieces of equipment, they don't have anybody to call anymore to request a higher level of service from the factory or whatnot.
You mentioned that there's some bigger companies in your area. What kind of semiconductor companies are around Albuquerque that you work with?
Well, there's a number of companies, and I don't know if I want to go into who uses our facility or not. But of course, the huge big names, they have their own facilities, and they're the ones who are, very generous in allowing us to receive this equipment. Now, it was a big education for me on how to deal in this manner, and I had to be educated. So there's one of the educations I had to come up on, is that this is a nonprofit school. And essentially, we can't sell things in a certain way. We can't receive things in a certain way. We can't. So I have to put things up for auction if we're going to get rid of it. So I had a whole warehouse full of equipment. And because it was donated to us, I had to put it up for a public auction and handle it in a certain way. And of course, this is government, just University of New Mexico's property, and has to be handled in a certain way. And whatever that way is, we want to accommodate whatever legal obligations we've made by receiving this. So if they were nice enough to donate it to us to begin with, there's usually stipulations that we can't go sell it for $1 million tomorrow and pocket the $1 million. It has to be used for our education purposes, right here in the state. And of course, that factory is still going, across the river there in Albuquerque. So they're kind of expecting to have a pool of applicants coming from the University of New Mexico who are qualified, who understand the industry jargon, and that's part of the purpose of them wanting to donate to a local school.
How long have you been at the MTTC?
I've been here 6 years now, and I was with the world's largest, maybe the U.S.'s largest manufacturer at Intel before I came here. So I have probably 30 years in the computer chip manufacturing operations, and different companies. Work for Phillips semiconductors, and this is back when you turned on a computer and it did nothing. It just came up with a C prompt, and you had to type Windows and enter to even get it to launch Windows and stuff. So there's been a long, long history with me and Dr. Plyle, my director here. Me and Dr. Plyle worked together back in the early 90s at Phillips Semiconductor. So what a small world it is,
Did you work as a technician at Intel and at Phillips?
I was a field service engineer at Intel, so I worked in robotics and automation. And also I worked at Phillips as a technician for 15 years there. And also before that, I went to a local community college, which was the best $20 I ever spent in my life. And it was, once again, an education there to understand that it's $20, but this program's paid for by your property taxes. So you could see the line items, and you could see when they're, increasing some bond levy, they're going to do a mill levy on a bond. So this money is going to go to the local community college. That's how you pay $20 to go to school, is because it's paid for in another way. And I'm all for that. I'm all for local governments really assisting in the educational system, because it's a public education system, just like a high school, just like an elementary school. But they've cut the budget so much that we have to charge tuition, we have to charge lab fees, we have to charge all of this stuff now. So the people get disconnected and think we're like Yale or something. It's some private college. No, we're still just like any public school in New Mexico. We're funded just the same way. And my professor kind of gets away from the lab work and does have to go to Santa Fe to stand in front of the governor and the state senators and ask for funding against somebody who wants a new ambulance down in Cloudcroft, New Mexico or something. So
what part of your technician training program at community college do you still use day to day in your job?
Well, I use every aspect of my education. I think it's something that's an accumulative thing through your lifetime. So I anytime I'm in a situation, something's got to work. You got to fix something. You can only stare at it so long before you have to just try something. So you pull in all of the knowledge you've had ever since fixing your bicycle, fixing your mom's little air conditioner on the roof, fix whatever it takes to get this thing to work. You're going to get it to work, So, of course, when you're at the community college, that's when I was studying, MOSFETs and just normal transistors, normal bipolar transistors. So that kind of helps with the science of what we're doing here now. So I don't think a lot of people go in depth into the semiconductors the way not everybody has to go that far in depth to work and make a good career in this industry.
Do you remember what was the toughest part of your education for you?
And this is a good question because I had to steer away from software. I was not a coder. I knew I was more of a hardware kind of guy. When I was in the Navy, I worked on helicopters. There was that satisfaction in watching the helicopter take off and land, and you worked on it. You knew you fixed it. And it's the same with the robotics that I worked on. The robot's not moving until you fix it, you say go, and there it's running again. But I just could not sit there with BASIC or some Fortran and just code. And yet I had friends and other fellow students who would sit there with a big old Mountain Dew all night long and go to 4 a.m. just typing away. And that's what was for them,
Rick, you mentioned that you were in the Navy. How did your military experience figure into your personal and professional story?
For me, I think I needed the discipline. I think it still benefits me to this day. I need, for anyone to function in any job, the alarm clock's going to go off. You need to get up and out of bed. And you need to get to work. You need to be on time. So of course, this was all right from when I was 18, going into the military. There's no alarm clock going off. There's somebody screaming reveille, reveille, reveille. And, so you get into these habits that are going to benefit you in life, I think it was just the best thing for me, but I will admit it might not be the best thing for everybody. But, for anybody who has a job, anybody who's going to work in this high-tech industry, there are certain demands, there are certain expectations, and there's a lot of competition in this world right now. So if you're not on the top of the game, I don't think the factory is going to want you. I mean, it's almost like pro sports, almost like Hollywood, almost like it. Do they want to work with you? Do you show up on time? Do you get along with your coworkers? Do you have a smile on your face in the morning and say, good morning, or do you come in, so that this is definitely affects a lot in your life and in your work,
Yeah, usually we call those professional skills, and I love the way that you called those out and how they're important. Can you tell me a little bit about your transition from the military into civilian life? How did you find out about technician work when you left the Navy?
Well, the whole purpose of me joining the Navy was to acquire money so I could go to school. I think, to me, I think it was my duty, everybody's duty out there, to try to get as much education in this lifetime as you can. And I owed that to myself to go back to school. That was the whole purpose. I could have re-enlisted, stayed in. I wanted to go to school, and kind of like stealing from Bill Gates a little bit. So it's like the early 80s. And if you don't do it now, you're going to miss this boat of computer chips, the computer industry coming up. And I can see it just like everybody else can see it. If you're not getting in now, you're not getting in on the ground floor, and you're not seeing how this stuff works. And just like everybody who lived through it, it was the most exciting time in professional geekdom of computer guys and doing stuff like this. And I'll admit it, I just love this stuff. I did sports, sure I did the military. There was no seeing the future when computers came out. No one knew where this was going to end. And me and Dr. Plyle talked about, well, if it wasn't for memory, it would have ended pretty quick. And because we developed the memory and the teraflops and everything now, that's the only thing that got us where we are now. But it's been a great adventure. And to see a phone talk at you now when you say, hey, Siri, it's just, even to me, even starting off at hitting Control-Alt-Delete to now, it's utterly amazing, and I couldn't even imagine and foresee where it's going from here,
What's something unexpected about working as a technician that you now know but didn't know when you started?
Well, I think the main thing I wanted to maybe interject right now is as a technician, you still have to stay in tune that this is a customer service type thing, right? Whether it's my mom hiring the guy to come in to look at the TV set and look at the cable, or somebody at Intel having a field service engineer come in, a whole team of engineers come in and address a problem. It's still about customer service and identifying who your customer is. So it might not always be the engineer. It might not always be the professor. It could very well be the operator that's running the machine that you finally get an interview with, and you say, what do you think can make this machine run more efficiently, get more throughput through the machine? Well, and she'll tell you, every time I do this, I have to go measure this, I have to go do this. So you kind of solve those bottlenecks and make life better for her. And then when she's your customer, now you go back to the main engineers and they tell you, we have it. We weren't getting 100 wafers a day. Now we're getting 100 wafers a day,
Rick, how did your life change when you became a technician? What's different now compared to when you were in community college?
Well, I think one of the realizations is I suppose, just like I was just saying about customer service, it's kind of like a doctor. When people find out you're a doctor, people start telling the doctor, my elbows just off. So if it's the same with a technician. When you inform somebody you have a skill set that you can fix this and fix that, you understand computers, you fix computers at this company, you help people. So now you're going to have people saying, you know what, I'm having trouble with this and I'm having trouble. So if this kind of bothers you, maybe it's not a good fit for you, because that's going to start right from when you can change a fuse all the way up to reprogramming a PLC controller. Right? People are going to know you have these skills. And for me, that's been a roller coaster ride. It's been bittersweet. But now I'm at the point I accept it, and I'm happy I have something I can offer and I can help somebody with, and provide some service. Just like you would want that for yourself. When you need help, somebody to come and explain something and be nice and give you that service. And it was one way at the factory, at the big factory and stuff. And then now, of course, with the students, it's yet a different way now. One of the things that was told to me by the professors early on, and it hit home, they said, you talk about chemistry like you've been doing this for 30 years, because you have. And none of them have been doing this for 30 years. So, you need to explain to them, the bases, solvents, acids, how, you don't mix chemicals up, and inform them of what they're going to be using at the facility. And of course, we're very much a live lab. So when we use sulfuric acid, it's real sulfuric acid. There is no fake sulfuric acid. So, and one of the things I stress is, like, we use hydrogen peroxide. Well, your mom uses hydrogen peroxide when you cut your finger and you put some, but that's like 5% by volume from the local pharmacy. The stuff we use is industrial strength chemical. That's 30% by volume. So even if you just touch this hydrogen peroxide, it's going to bleach your finger. No woman would use it to bleach her hair or anything like that. It's like very, very much going to be, corrosive and be harmful upon contact with your skin and stuff. So,
Rick, what advice would you give current students or people who want to transition their careers and work as a technician?
Well, I think, mainly it's going to be physical work. It's going to be a lot of diagnosing of failed components and replacing those components. So now with modern day equipment, there's a lot of things you plug in and it'll come up with an error code. Nowadays, the modern stuff will just flat out tell you, this module is bad. Change the P3 module out, versus something just telling you no signal has been met, waiting for temperature to come up. So we could have a technical problem where it's not going to, just like every computer, it's going to wait for something to happen before it goes on to the next line item. So you could be waiting for some temperature to come up and you're just 1 degree lower than the temperature. So you have to go address it and say, why is this not making temperature? Oh, someone forgot to close the door. So you have to go close the door on it. Then the heat builds up again. Then it sees that event. And with modern day computers, only then will it move on to the next step, because it won't want to go. It might not be safe to go to the next step unless the machine's at like 1,000 degrees C or something like that. So.
Rick, you've had a lot of success working as a technician. If somebody started out working as a technician today, do you anticipate that they'd have a bright future ahead of them?
I would say they are going to have an outstanding future ahead of them. Like I said, just not so much in these big factories, but there's a ton of tech jobs out there. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning jobs. Auto working on cars is going to always be there. And mechanical things, they're just always going to break. They're always going to need some service. And it's very nice if you don't like certain type of jobs. Like I said, it wasn't for me to sit in front of a computer all day. I do plenty of stuff behind a computer, but it's well balanced. And a lot of the guys I deal with, we could only do so much maintenance here at University of New Mexico, and we're only allowed to do so much. I'm not allowed to do heavy electrical work. So, of course, I have to call in vendors just like everybody else and bring them in, do work up to code, up to a certain level. When the work is complete and I'm satisfied with their work, we pay off what we owe them in our contract and stuff. So I have to watch a budget now. So that's something very different than working at a big factory. Somebody else is watching the budget. And some of these big, huge companies, I've been called into the office of the site manager, and they're telling me what's wrong with this machine. We need this machine. And well, it needs this, it needs this. There is no part in that machine that costs as much as having this machine broken, right? Whatever this costs, you need to get this in here now, because by having this machine broken, it's costing us way more than that. So they'll stress that to you. And so that was one of the balancing acts with the factory, is there was an engineering group. They're concerned about quality. And you could imagine if you're buying a product as a consumer and you're going on your wireless remote control and now your button doesn't work. So that company is going to get a reputation that they're not making quality stuff. And that's kind of on the engineering. And then there's, of course, the manufacturing people that tell you, we need to make X number of these a month. Or it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or a technician, we're all just going to have to close the doors and go home because we're not making any money. And then there's the technician who's kind of trapped in the middle of this paradox where the engineer's saying, no, I want it quality. I want this now to work perfect 10 times out of 10. And yet you have the manufacturing guy say, yeah, 10 times out of 10, get it working now, And so you have to create that balance. And that's your role, is to try to fix the machine, make it safe. Sometimes just shut down the robot, put on the acid gear yourself. Let's get this product through here. I'll move it through with my hand and we'll get it out. And now we have time to fix the machine. And we'll fix it right. We've gotten the product out that we need, but it's almost like it gets to the point like you think of NASCAR, right? The cars are out making laps. When it comes in for a pit stop, that's me coming up. These guys in these factories don't want this machine down. They want it to be like a Formula One pit stop where the tires come off, the new tires come on, you do the, and in the perfect world, that would be great if we can do that kind of maintenance. But unfortunately, it's not, and we just try to do the balancing act the best we can, and we're happy when it works,
Rick, thank you so much for being on Talking Technicians and sharing your story.
All right. Thank you very much.
Please keep in touch.
Thank you. I will.
Talking Technicians is produced by MNTech, the Micro Nano Technology Education Center, through financial support from the National Science Foundation's Advanced Technological Education Grant Program. Opinions expressed on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the National Science Foundation. Join the conversation. If you are a working technician or know someone who is, reach out to us at info@talkingtechnicians.org. We're always looking out for great guests to share more stories with you.